Hey everyone, nice to see you virtually. I hope you had a good week. We're going into week 2 of poetry. I would give you an update on how the essays are coming, but considering you just turned them in yesterday when I'm recording this, I can't really tell you where I'll be 1 week later when you're actually watching this lecture. Okay, so who knows? It could be soon. It might be another week. Cross the fingers. Okay. I'm not a fortune teller, even though this is in the future. Okay. So you'll find out. But today, though, we are going to go ahead and talk about essay 2 before you even get back essay 1. Okay. All right. So this week we're working out of the lesson section, poetry unit. The PowerPoint that I'm going over today is right here. Okay. I'm going to talk about this right here, perspectives in poetry, and I'm going to talk about essay 2 today. Last week, you should have done You Must Die by Claude McKay, this assignment, and this assignment. If you didn't have time to do the extra credit assignment, but you still want to, well, you can. Go ahead. Feel free to do that. I don't have a problem with you doing the extra credit now, currently, for this week. So, especially because this week is kind of light. It's pretty light. All right. Okay. Let's finish this. Oh, okay. Wait. So, prior to this lecture, you're supposed to have watched the Childish Gambino music video of This Is America. So, I posted the link to the music video in 2 different spots. One, it's here at the bottom of the poetry unit if you have not watched it yet. And then another one in lectures, week 7. It'll be the lecture link for, I haven't posted the lecture link for week 7 because it's not up yet, because I'm doing it right now in the past from when you're watching this. Crazy. But here's the music video for This Is America. Because we're going to I'm going to do sort of an analysis of This Is America as if it was a poem. And I used to play the video, or one time I played the video in the lecture and just shared my screen. But then YouTube got really mad at me for doing that, and I was told that I could no longer do that. So, oopsies, sorry, my bad, YouTube. Okay, I got this hair right here. There we go. So I can't do this. So you have to actually watch it either prior to this lecture, or when I get to that part to talk about it, you can just pause the lecture, go watch the music video, and then replay it, then start playing the lecture back. Okay. All right. So lessons, poetry unit, and the PowerPoint that I'll be going over today. Okay. No! Exit drawing. I hate the little drawing thing. I just needed to move so I can start my slideshow. Oh, gosh. There we go. Okay. Okay, so essay 2, and understanding theme through symbolism. in a text. Okay. So for essay 2, your second analytical essay is based on 1 to 3 of the poems from the poetry packet, Female, Queer, and Black Perspectives in Poetry, which I'll show you where that is. You may analyze the theme, tone, symbolism, style, or critical interpretations of the poems. You can choose 3 poems from the same category or 3 poems from different categories. Your essay must have these components: an introduction, a body with 3 body paragraphs, conclusion, thesis statement, good development, topic sentences, and transition words. Your paper must be double-spaced, 3 to 4 full pages, about 1,200 words, and written in 12-point font. You must cite your main sources and adhere to the MLA style formatting. You're going to cite the only sources you're going to cite are your 3 outside sources. You won't cite the songs or the poems in your works cited page, just your outside research, which I'll get into that next week about what to do and how to do that, about how to apply research to this paper, okay? And I think I might have just jumped ahead. You must incorporate minimum of 3 secondary sources, topical or supportive, okay? And like I said, I'm going to go over that more next week once you have decided on the 3 poems that you're going to analyze, okay? So this paper will be at least 5 paragraphs. 3 of those paragraphs are body paragraphs. Each body paragraph, you're discussing a different poem from this packet that I'm going to show you. And for each discussion, you're going to have an outside resource, okay? So in order to kind of like get you ready for this paper, you need to understand theme, because that's one of the things that you can talk about in your paper. So theme, a literary theme is the main idea or underlying meaning a writer explores in a novel, a short story, or, like as we're going to see in a moment, a music video or a film, a poem, because these poems have themes in them. For some writers, theme is just as important to grasp, if not more, than the events of the story. And by story, I really mean by the narrative, whether that's a narrative poem, a narrative film, whatever. Many authors begin with a thematic concept and then create a story to communicate their theme. Like, you have some writers who, they're just about the story. Stephen King, I read him a lot, okay? And he always starts with a situation. His stories are always situational. And if they have a theme, they end up with a theme, cool. If they don't end up with a theme, he's fine with that. Because his stories are about what happens, not why it matters or why it happened. But then there are other writers, like there's a writer named Flannery O'Connor, and she's known as being a didactic writer. And didactic literature is where theme is the most important, because it's about teaching a lesson. And so Flannery, she always starts more with an idea or a lesson that she wants to teach, and then she creates a storyline around it that covers that. The theme of a story or a narrative or a poem or film can be conveyed using character, setting, dialogue, plot, or a combination of all of these elements. So like there are, another thing about theme versus storyline. There are 2 films I'm thinking about that both have a lot of similarities. There's the movie Pulp Fiction and the movie Crash. Both stories both films have like different storylines in them that all seem separate, and then by the end of the film, they all come together, and they show how they're connected, okay? Pulp Fiction does that just to tell an interesting story. I mean, literally, the term Pulp Fiction means stories that are really juicy, stories that are all about what happens. They have interesting, funny, quick dialogue. They have action and adventure and excitement. They may have like sex and other things that are exciting to watch. And so it's literally like the pulp of like a peach or an orange. It's supposed to be juicy. So you watch it and you're like, oh wow, oh my god, this is you're right. But it's not deep. It's not deep nutrition. I mean, yeah, it might cover your vitamin C, okay, but it's not overly hearty, okay, in that way. It's pulpy. So that's like Pulp Fiction. In the movie Crash, which is it to me it tries way too hard, but it's really drawing to this thematic ending about how all of us who seem different are really actually connected. Okay, and it's a theme in which, in theory, I like, but the movie I don't like because it tries too hard. It tries too hard to send home that message. So sometimes when things are too motivated by theme, they feel forced. Understating theme through the use of symbolism. Theme can be communicated through literal events and dialogue in a text. So you might pick it up just by literally what's written on the paper. For example, The Hate You Give. This book, if you read the book or saw the movie, it's literally about police brutality. There's no right symbolism. It's if you read that book or watched the movie and didn't realize that the moral lesson in it is about police brutality, you really missed something. Okay. But theme can also be communicated through metaphor, where it seems like it's about one thing, but it's conveying a different meaning. And this can be seen through plot, characters, and situations. Okay, they can all be symbols. Metaphor is often communicated through the use of symbols. Instead of saying something is something, we just have the symbol. Okay, so I'm going to read you a poem called House in the World by Langston Hughes. Here we go. House in the World. I'm looking for a house in the world where the white shadows will not fall. There is no such house, dark brothers, no such house at all. So we have symbolism here. Okay, the book is not really about a house. And we know it's not really about these actual things because there are no real white shadows. Shadows, darkness. But here he calls them white shadows, which means that that's a hint. This is not really about a house. It's not really about shadows. This is all one big metaphor. Okay? Symbolism. So house, white shadows. What do they mean? Well, let's dissect the symbol. Identify something that you think is symbolic. A lot of times we can figure out, we can like identify it before we even know what it means. Like, oh, I have a hunch. I'm pretty sure that's a symbol. Now, what the hell does it mean? Let's try to figure it out. So identify the literal object the symbol is. Example, a house is a place of residency where one resides. Then identify the figurative representation of this symbol. Okay, so if a house is a place where people reside, all right, cool. All right, but what does it symbolize? Well, a house symbolizes a place where one should feel safe, secure, and belonging. Now, of course, there's plenty of people who grew up in houses that do not feel safe, do not feel secure, you do not feel like you belong. Okay, I get that. But that is the idea. Ideally, what a house would make one feel safe, secure, and belonging. So, with symbolism, we work with the generalized understanding of a symbol, not like your experience or your neighbor's experience or a literal experience, but more about what it represents. So who is impacted or affected by this symbol? Well, in this case, we have the Dark Brothers. Okay, identify the characters that are literally impacted by the symbol in the text. Dark Brothers. Okay. So what do Dark Brothers mean? Then identify who or what these characters figuratively represent and the effects of the symbol on them. So, example, dark brothers represent people of color and their search for a safe place. Okay, this poem is written for the writer, for the speaker's dark brothers. That's on purpose. Okay, that dark emphasizes that it's for people of color, not referring to people like me. Okay, people who lack a lot of color. What is the theme of the text? So now we break down, we look at the symbol, we identify symbols, and we break down the symbols. We identify the population, the audience, those who are represented by the symbol, and the literal and figurative interpretation of these things. Using the dissection of the symbol, the characters, and the effect on the characters, determine the theme that the author is constructing. So, for example, A House in the World addresses the oppressive effects of racism, the white shadows falling. Okay, living in one's shadow, having something overshadow you. These are negative things. These are never positive. And so, if it's white shadows and shadows are negative, then this is white power, white racism. This is oppression, okay? And this leaves many people to believe that racism is inescapable. I heard this terrible story about this black family from South Africa who were trying to move away from the racism of South Africa, the apartheid. You know, South Africa is a country that was ruled and dominated by white people, colonized by white people. And Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for his fight against racism. And eventually he got out and he became the president and stuff. But there was still a lot of racism that still survived there because many generations of white people who dominated South Africa felt like it was their country. So this black family moved from post-apartheid South Africa to America, where they believed in all the ideas of equality, and they moved to what they thought was like the furthest place away from the racism of apartheid South Africa, and so they moved to North Dakota, to a small town in North Dakota, and within I don't know, it was like a month or 2 months. Someone had spray painted KKK on their wall of their house, on I think their garage, and someone sprayed it like "Go back to Africa." Just terrible. I mean, they went from a totally different hemisphere, different side of the world, what they thought was completely opposite, to a small place, to then also again receive this type of alienation just because of their race. It's just awful. And so for them, yeah, they're looking for a house in the world in which the white shadows do not fall. And they probably feel as if they'll never find one. It's very sad. All right, so if you have not watched This Is America by Childish Gambino, I want you to pause this, go back to the lecture page or the Unit 3 page, or the Poetry Unit page, and click on the link to the music video and watch it, okay? If you have watched it, awesome. We're ready to talk, okay? So at this point, I'm going to go over the video for those who have seen it, and I'm welcoming back those who just jumped back in to from watching the video, okay? So we're going to go through the same process. Identify and dissect symbols. So we're going to identify the literal object the symbol represents. Okay. So here we have this right here. We have the black narrator shooting another black person in the head. Now, this plays on very much this talking point that many white people and want to cite which is in reference to Chicago. White people love talking about the black on black crime in Chicago. It's the number one thing that they love to go to. Okay, I mean, look at this city. Black people killing black people. This is crazy. Okay, and so to one degree, this is addressing that. But then we also got to look at what does this represent. All right, and we got to look at how is he standing. Childish Gambino is looking very interesting here in this. And then if we look at this picture from Jim Crow from the 1800s, which was a comical, satirized character created by a white person to make fun of black people, we can kind of see there's a similarity in stance, okay? And we can interpret this as Gambino mimicking the racist cartoon of the character Jim Crow that became the name of the racist segregation laws in America. So this image right here is Gambino impersonating or being a representation of this Jim Crow character, which is the embodiment of racism. Jim Crow represents 100% racism. And here, this is Childish Gambino is being the manifestation of racism and what racism does. And it kills people of color. That's what it does. All right, so who's impacted and affected by this symbol? Well, we kind of already talked about it. Black people and other people of color as well. We identify who or what these characters figuratively represent and the effects of this symbol on them. Gambino is imitating systemic racism and the deadly impacts it has had on people of color. Throughout the whole music video, it's him. He's our narrator. He is almost like he's ushering us through. If you read Dante's Inferno, he is Virgil leading us through it. But he's also embodying this real life racism, this manifestation of it, and showing its negative impact. So there were many other scenes from the video that I could go into. The shooting in the church. If you go back to the choir, when the choir group is singing and they get shot, that's a reference to what happened in Charleston. A racist went into the black church and killed the singing. Not singing. They were praying. It was a prayer group, and they were all black. Okay. Then there's the rioting on the street that he goes through, and so then we eventually get to this scene right here where Gambino is standing on these cars. If you notice, all the car doors, if you can see, that car door is open, that car door is open, and these are late 80s, early 90s model cars. So this must mean something. This must mean something symbolic. Okay. And which will give us a theme. So people talked about online how viewers drew connections to the black men routinely killed by police during traffic stops. Okay. So the car doors open represent these cars that were stopped and the drivers had to get out, which then eventually led to a lot of them to being killed or abused or illegally arrested. A lot of those cars have their driver's side doors open and hazards on because they're symbolic of the cars of all the people pulled over and killed by the police. Maybe. Others found economic symbolism within the sea of beat up cars. Okay. So the wealth, the socioeconomic and political power of the black community was on a rise, but then it stalled in the late 80s and early 90s. And there's a variety of different reasons why it stalled. There's many different theorists, economic theorists of why, but they were all on a positive projectile and then plateaued. Okay, and so Some say that like the cars represent that. They are they're higher models, but they're now like 30 years old and stuff. And so it stopped. Black wealth stopped progressing at that point for whatever reason. Okay. And so the cars could symbolize that there is not an equal. Morning. So something that's what the cars represent: stalled black wealth and progress in America. Okay. So hold on. So those are some ways that you can take something that is an image and try to come up with meaning for it and then argue it. Okay. Your paper is just that. You're taking these things that are, you don't have to go over the, every single little thing in the poems. Just like I didn't go over every single little thing in that Childish Gambino video. I mean, this lecture is already 26 minutes long, and there's plenty more to talk about. But it's this idea of taking snippets that are clearly symbolic or that means something more than just the literal line, and trying to figure out what it could possibly mean. And for your paper, you're going to be doing something like that as well. There's not really a right or wrong answer. It's just about your argument. Is your argument valid based upon the poems? And do you support it well enough? I'm grading your writing. I'm not grading your interpretation. So this week, what you're going to do is you're going to read the Perspectives and Poetry packet, which I'm going to show you in a moment. And you're going to pick 3 poems to analyze. You pick 3 poems from the same group, pick 3 poems from 3 different groups. You can pick 3 poems from one group and then 1 poem from a different group to relate them all together. Okay? And I will show you that now. So, poetry unit. Perspectives in poetry. Female, queer, and black perspectives in poetry, which I think I have right here. Okay. So these are some poems that focus on women's perspectives. Okay. Ignore this like 1 right there. I don't know why that is. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm fixing for mine, but then we have poetry through a queer perspective. So we have poems from different times and perspectives. Okay. Men, women, trans. Here we go. And then we have the black perspective, all these right here, which focus mostly on. Now look, like I said, you can do 1 of each, or you could do 2. Let's say you did 2 from the women's unit, you do 2 from the female perspective, and then you come down here to the black perspective and you do 1 from a black woman, okay? And talk about maybe how this poem deals both with racism and sexism, black issues and women's issues, okay? Which is totally fine as well. So you can do that. All right. What I want you to do is I want you to read all of them. Read all of them first, and then pick 3 that seem like you have the most to say, that gives you the most to talk about, that you feel like you understand the most. All right. And which is why this is all you're really doing this week. You don't have any actual written graded assignments for this week. So you're just reading the poems, and you don't have to tell me which 3 you're doing. You're just picking 3 in your head, and that's it. Just look, 1102. Where is it? 1101. There it is. 1102. You are reading all 3 poems in the packets, and pick a packet to analyze for paper 2. Okay. So if you get time, you can do the extra credit, which is totally fine. The Edgar Allan Poe story or poem, The Raven. If you have time, you want to do that, you need extra credit, go ahead and do it. If you're happy with your grade, you don't need extra credit, and you want a light week, just read the poems, and in your head, go ahead and pick 3 that you want to analyze for your paper. Okay? All right, that's it. So hope you have a good week. If you have any questions, let me know. Send me an email, and I'll try to answer them. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.